Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Midday Report. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Poland has elected a new president in a closely fought race. Karol Nawrocki, a conservative aligned with the Law and Justice Party, narrowly defeated Liberal candidate Rafał Trzaskowski. The outcome is expected to reshape Poland's political landscape and challenge the agenda of Prime Minister Donald Tusk's government. The victory came as a surprise after early exit polls pointed to a Trzaskowski lead, but a late shift in projections and a strong surge from southeastern regions propelled Nawrocki to the presidency with just under 51% of the vote. The result underscores Poland's deep political divide, with Nawrocki dominating conservative strongholds in the east and south, while liberal cities and the diaspora backed Trzaskowski. Beyond the numbers, the outcome is a significant defeat for Prime Minister Donald Tusk's pro-EU coalition. With Nawrocki assuming office in August, the government loses the presidency and faces a powerful institutional check. The new president, widely seen as pro-Trump conservative, inherits veto powers that could stall liberal reforms on social policy and the judiciary, extending the political deadlock seen under his predecessor. For Nationalist Law and Justice Party, which lost control of Parliament last year, the win secures a third consecutive term in the presidency and consolidates its influence in key state institutions. Nawrocki's rise also aligns Poland more closely with the nationalist wave sweeping parts of Central Europe, echoing the rhetoric and positions of other conservative leaders in the region. Rafał Trzaskowski has officially acknowledged his defeat in Poland's presidential election. In a statement posted on social media, he thanked voters for their support and congratulated Karol Nawrocki on his victory.
Thank you for every vote. I fought for us to be able to build a strong, safe, honest, empathetic Poland together. A modern Poland in which everyone would be able to achieve their goals and aspirations. Thank you to everyone who voted for that Poland. I congratulate Karol Nawrocki on winning the election. This is as much a victory as it is a contract, especially in such difficult times, especially with such a close result. Please remember that.
Tonight at 8 p.m. Central European Time, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk will address the nation in a special televised speech following the outcome of the presidential election. As this will be his first public statement since Karol Nawrocki's victory and could signal the start of a new political dynamic in Poland. Tusk will speak on Monday evening after the official results confirm that Karol Nawrocki, backed by the opposition Law and Justice Party, has won the presidency. The conservative candidate's victory is widely seen as a reflection of growing public dissatisfaction with the current liberal government. Until now, Tusk has remained silent on the results, adding to anticipation surrounding his remarks. Tusk has previously indicated that a government reshuffle would follow the election, aiming to form a leaner and more effective administration. Outgoing Polish President Andrzej Duda, along with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, have congratulated Karol Nawrocki on his victory in the Polish presidential election, stressing Poland's vital role in regional and European security.
Congratulations to the president, new president of Poland, and I already congratulated by messaging. But I think that I hope that in the closest time we will have opportunity to speak. And Poland is our big friend and strong neighbor, and we respect the voting and of course voting of Polish people. And my congratulations to the new president and to all the Polish people. Thank you so much.
If I'm not mistaken, and of course I want to congratulate the winner, and I look very much forward to working together on all these issues and making sure that with Poland, NATO becomes even stronger than it is today.
We see the support of Poles for Karol Nawrocki, who has consistently said that he would continue, in fact, the very policy that I inherited from President Lech Kaczyński and have implemented over all these years. This is the policy that resonates with Poles, that building close relations between Poland and the United States, basing our security on that, as well as strengthening our security through the reinforcement of the Polish army, through defense spending, and in this way building the strength of our state across all regions, through the equal development of Poland. This is the direction that Poles have chosen.
Markets in Warsaw fell this morning following Karol Nawrocki's presidential election victory. The main stock index declined with the steepest losses seen in banking shares. By late morning, the Week 20 index, which tracks the largest companies, was down more than 1.5%. The broader Week index also slipped. Now, shares in major banks, including PKO BP and mBank, dropped sharply. Investors are concerned about the potential for early parliamentary elections and raising political tension between the new president and the government. In the midst of market uncertainty, insurance giant PZU and Bank PKO have announced a planned merger by mid-2026. The move aims to create a single major player in the Warsaw Stock Exchange. The European Commission says it remains confident that the rule of law reforms led by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk will continue even under newly elected President Karol Nawrocki. The remarks came just hours after the conservative Eurosceptic candidate secured a victory in Poland's presidential runoff. We're joined live by our EU correspondent, Angela Skujins. Angela, so how does Nawrocki's win complicate Poland's position in the EU and the future of those reforms?
Yes, so in the run-up to that presidential runoff ballot on Sunday, we heard Nawrocki, of course, that's that Law and Justice back politician. He said that he would veto any measures that threaten national sovereignty or those traditional values. Many saw this in reference to those planned reforms spearheaded by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. He first announced this after taking office in December 2023. He wanted to unwind the damage caused by 8 years of Law and Justice, which many described as democratic backsliding and an erosion of that independence in the courts as well as the judiciary. However, for these reforms to truly take place, they need the approval of the president. And now Nawrocki can, of course, veto this with his new position. But TVP World asked the European Commission how confident they are that these reforms will continue as Nawrocki, as the president. Let's take a listen to what they had to say. So the soundbite is fundamental rights as well as democracy and rule of law. They said this is the bedrock of our society and common identity, and they support the Polish government in their rule of law efforts. But when we pressed them regarding Poland's status of these rule of law reforms, they couldn't give us an update so far. But of course, we know Poland was triggered by that Article 7 procedure for that democratic backsliding. So we'll have to wait and see what they say there, as well as the status of all of those frozen EU funds promised to that Central European country if it makes those improvements to the courts as well as that constitutional tribunal. But we also know from Nawrocki he has bristled against other EU policies such as the Green Deal as well as migration and asylum reforms, as well as the establishment of a European army. He has also said that he would block Ukraine's accession bid to the 32-member strong NATO military alliance. So we expect some debate, particularly from Nawrocki and Tusk, as well as that new Polish president within the European Union more broadly. But that's all from Brussels. I'll send it back to you in Warsaw.
Thank you so much, Angela, for wrapping all of that up for us. I really appreciate it. Karol Nawrocki won the presidential election in Poland, but among voters abroad, Rafał Trzaskowski received a clear majority. More than 600,000 Poles voted outside the country in Sunday's election, and over 380,000 of them supported Trzaskowski.
Over 63% of Poles casting their ballots abroad voted in support of civic coalition's Rafał Trzaskowski, while just 36% chose Law and Justice's Karol Nawrocki. The largest group of voters were in the United Kingdom, Germany and the United States, with over 360,000 people were registered to vote in the three countries. While Trzaskowski won overall among Poles abroad, Nawrocki won over Poles living in the United States, where over 56% of eligible voters came out in support of the Law and Justice candidate. Nawrocki received the most support in Kosovo, Canada and the United States, taking well over 50% of the vote in each country. Rafał Trzaskowski, meanwhile, received the largest share of support from Poles in Indonesia, Vietnam and India. Over 86% of Poles voting in these countries picked the Civic Coalition candidate.
The Polish sea resort of Sopot is hosting the European Financial Congress. With many notable guests present, the discussions touch upon a number of topics ranging from banking through sustainable development to the future of the European Union. Our reporter Peter Mischuk is on site. Peter, what are the most heated discussions right now about?
So the discussions obviously centre around the Polish and the European financial system with many top businessmen, experts and politicians, but these discussions have been overshadowed by yesterday's election and the defeat of Rafał Trzaskowski, which has put the government into a very difficult position. There is some murmur even here at this Congress that Prime Minister Tusk should resign, but former Prime Minister Jan Krzysztof Bilecki told me that he strongly disagrees.
There is no reason, no logic to consider that situation, and I think in a contrary, the government will be more consolidated and more determined to deliver, even though, of course, to go through legislative process might be more difficult because one could expect a veto from the incoming president. In the parliament, who is going to step down or not is decided by the vote of the majority, not by the individual.
What the future of the Prime Minister Tusk and Civic coalition is, we'll see in the coming months, and what the talks here will center around, we'll see in the coming hours. Back to you, Ben.
Thank you so much for the update, Peter. Appreciate it. Marta Nawrocka, wife of President-elect Karol Nawrocki, is stepping into the spotlight as Poland's first lady-in-waiting. After years of keeping a low profile, she became a more frequent presence alongside her husband during the campaign. Born in Gdańsk in 1986, Marta Nawrocka has built a career in public service focused on economic security. A graduate of the University of Gdańsk Faculty of Law and Administration, she began working at the age of 21 as a customs officer, later joining the National Revenue Administration. There, she specialized in oversight of the oil and spirits industry, as well as illegal gambling. Now, with her husband elected president, Marta Nawrocka's public role is expanding. The couple has 3 children, Daniel, Antoni, and Katarzyna. While Karol Nawrocki has traditionally kept his private life out of the spotlight, Marta has become increasingly visible at public events. Direct talks between Russia and Ukraine begin in Istanbul. The second round of negotiations follow a large-scale Ukrainian attack on Russia's bomber fleet, raising doubts about how much progress can realistically be made. Our correspondent Alice Kadir is in Istanbul and has more.
Well, this second round of talks comes as both sides have been trading blows in the run-up. We saw that incredibly sophisticated Ukrainian operation targeting those long-range strategic bombers from Russia. That, of course, showing that Ukraine still has cards to play in this conflict. In response overnight, more than 100 Russian drones targeting Ukrainian cities in a way that we have been seeing for months and months and months. So clearly, the Ukrainian side wanting to hit Russia where it hurts ahead of these negotiations, wanting to negotiate through strength. Now, we know that the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has spoken to his American counterpart Marco Rubio on Sunday. Ahead of these elections, they are set to be led by a presidential advisor from the Russian side and from Rustem Umerov, the defense minister of Ukraine, on the Ukrainian side. Now, the last round of talks that we reported on here in Istanbul led to a prisoner exchange and an agreement to meet again and share negotiating positions. That sharing of negotiating positions has been a very clear sticking point for this round of talks. The Ukrainians say Russia has not shared its negotiating position, and meanwhile the Russians say although Ukraine has, they did not share it in the Russian language. Our viewers can make up their minds as to how constructive the Russians are feeling as part of these negotiations. But nevertheless, both sides are here in Istanbul, will be negotiating, will be talking, but particularly if you see both sides exchanging blows, the hopes of a breakthrough remains quite slim. Alex Kade for TVP World in Istanbul.
And with that, we conclude this edition of our midday report. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.